What's up, folks? How's it going? I'm going to answer these questions. Bear with me. I feel real sick all of a sudden and don't know why, so that's pretty cool. And YouTube is all fucked up because somebody decided it would be an awesome idea to make it so that the comments are like in no particular order whatsoever. So that's pretty badass. I like having, common features like being able to scroll through comments removed so that it makes my experience more complicated and difficult. I always enjoy that. Alright, let's get to these questions. One second. Fucking calm down, alright? Fucking calm down. Alright, yes, I would like to see all the questions. Will they be in order? Yeah, you see, because I can't fucking tell who's replying to who because they haven't put them underneath the question. It's all fucked up, and like there's no borders between the comments. It all flows together in one big blob. Who the fuck? Whatever. All right, I'm upset by these comments, man. By the way they fuck this up. Let's look at this shit. What do you think of the Obama administration's recent shift towards Israel's settlement policy? I think it's good. Anything to help push us towards some kind of solution, which would be, the most likely solution is going to be the two-state solution, forming a true Palestinian state. And anything, any sign that we're really going to push Israel towards that is a positive one. Whether or not this trend will continue is something else altogether. But yeah, I'm always in favor of that. I have no I have no interest in Israel. All they do is cause us problems. There's also a shit ton of comments on here that are not questions. So here's a bunch of stuff about circumcision. I don't know, there's got to be a question about circumcision on here somewhere. There we go. I have a question. Do you think the new bill they are talking about in Massachusetts, which will outlaw both male and female circumcision, will pass? Also, what do you think of it? I have no idea if it'll pass because I don't know anything about the internal politics of the state of Massachusetts. So I can't answer that question, but I'm all for that. I'm not. I think we should not mutilate children. I think it's pretty fucking straightforward. If you really want to chop off your foreskin to imitate a Jew, that's something that you can feel free to do. When you're an adult, don't force that on a kid. And I've never understood in the United States all these Christians being circumcised. People in other countries that are not Jewish do not get circumcised. It seems to only be in fucking America that they pull this shit. I've never understood that. Why would a bunch of Christians want to imitate Jews? I don't know. I'm not even going to get into the endless debate of, what is better. You can find that shit. There's a debate on here about it. You can find that shit on 4chan. You can find that shit on all the, websites where people argue about gay shit like this. And I don't care about that. I just don't think you should be able to mutilate your baby. If you really want to remove your foreskin, you can make that decision as an adult. Circumcision is akin to, like, fucking tattooing something on a baby, Have you been watching season 14 of South Park? If so, what do you think so far? It's funny. I find with the new South Parks, like the last couple seasons, I kind of have to watch the episodes a couple times to really like them. They don't all click with me as quickly as they used to, but the shit's still funny. I don't really give a shit about fucking Tiger Woods, so The first episode of the season was The second one was pretty funny now. Why do cops need guns? Because bad guys have guns. From Richard. His question: if you had a child, is from Coughlin 666. He's going to try to trick me. If you had a child aged 7 to 10 and were forced to choose between making them attend 10 Kent Hovind lectures or being sexually molested once by a priest, which would you choose and why? And it would seem like it would be an easy answer. That would be, the lectures, because it would be easier to undo the damage of the lectures than to undo the damage of having your child molested. But this is actually a trick question, because if you pay any attention to our friends down at the Catholic Church, they will let you know that it's not really the priests that are doing it. It's kind of Satan sort of tempting them, and Satan's pulling the strings. This is actually a trick question. A priest has never sexually molested any child. Satan did that shit. Why don't you stop smoking? Because it is addictive. I would like to. I want to get those e-cigarettes, man. I almost bought one, but it was like $60. But the shit blew my mind. I was at the mall getting some fucking pants from the Sears, and I'm walking through the fucking mall to go back to the parking lot, and I see this dude standing at a kiosk in the middle of the mall smoking what appears to be a cigarette from 20 feet away. And I was like, holy shit, what the fuck is going on? I expected, SWAT teams to come in and shit, snipers to fucking blow the cigarette out of his hand because we wouldn't want to give anybody cancer. But, it turned out it was an e-cigarette, and, you can smoke this shit indoors, you can smoke this shit on a plane, because it's not, it's not actually smoke, it's vapor, it's a vaporizer. But $60, yeah. And now after all this shit I heard about that drug, Chantix, I believe is what it's called, to make you quit smoking, I'm somewhat afraid of the drug now. Excuse me. Do you get the impression over there, in the media or just generally, that the special relationship between the US and UK is dead? I ask this because the UK media currently seems to have a small preoccupation with reporting the special relationship, claiming it's dead. I thought it would be good to get an American's perspective. Well, first of all, the club of English-speaking countries is a small one, and for that reason, the English-speaking countries are always going to have a special relationship with each other, just because it's just so much easier to work with each other. And the thing with the UK is the United States and Great Britain have a military relationship unlike any other pretty much in the history of mankind. We share everything, and it's incredibly, it's mutually beneficial for everybody. All right, we've been doing this shit since World War II, and no matter what the public opinion is about America or England or whatever, that has never changed. They're not going to slow down our military cooperation, because we all know that when the shit hits the fan, we end up generally having the same opinions and being on the same side. I like England. Sounds like a great place. I feel that the American opinion of Britain is positive. I don't know how people in Britain feel about us, but I think people here feel pretty positive about you guys. And Europe over the last 10 years has been kind of douchey. A lot of this is because of Bush, but I think we've all apologized enough. Plus, it's not like we asked you motherfuckers to apologize for that fucking ugly cunt Margaret Thatcher. All right. If we can forgive you for that, you can forgive us. Do you think there should be a Holodomor museum? If you don't know, the Holodomor was the death of 7 million Ukrainians between 1932 and 33 by famine. Do you consider it genocide? I didn't know that was the name of that. I was aware that lots of Ukrainians died, unfortunately, in the 30s and 40s. Yeah, I would consider that genocide. This is the kind of shit that the Soviet Union did. The way that the Soviet Union, I mean, look at the two of the most, genocidal governments in the history of mankind. Look at Nazi Germany, you look at the Soviet Union. With the Nazis, their approach to genocide was one of their goals. That was one of their key concepts. We're going to kill these people. It's almost like the Soviets just didn't give a fuck about who died. It's almost like they didn't do it on purpose, but they didn't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like they just casually committed genocide, which is, to me, almost a little bit more creepy than what the Nazis did. And also it's sad because nobody really talks about what happened, back then. But yeah, I would consider that shit genocide. Should there be a museum? I don't know. I don't know what you have from that. That's a whole separate question. But yeah, I would consider that shit genocide. Which future world is more likely? A world that is completely controlled by fascistic governments, or a world where humanity has destroyed itself with nuclear weapons or in some other way? Well, why does it have to be a fascistic, why does it have to be a fascist government? I don't understand that. Is a world where we've fucked ourselves up considerably possible? Yes, and it remains, very possible as long as things like religion have not been taken care of. But I've said this shit before. I'm not necessarily against the concept of a one-world government, because, who says it has to be fascist? Who is your favorite comedian and why? It's George Carlin. Probably just because he's the best, man. And, his opinions fall in line with mine a lot. Mine is Bill Hicks. What do you think of him? I like Bill Hicks. I don't like that Rhapsody won't let me listen to any of his shit. And also he's dead, which sucks, but what can you do? Sometimes you just gotta kill somebody, so that contradicts your proclamation that these kids with guns are just doing target practice, hobbyist shooting. And what argument can you make for training children to kill? I never said that they're just using it for practice and hobbyist shooting, but all practice and hobbyist shooting is training to kill. That's what it is. Lots of shit is like that. Lots of our sports and activities and games and all that shit are just training to kill. And what argument can I make for training children to kill? You want a legitimate argument? It's contributed to the high quality of our professional army with the amount of experience that the average American has with firearms in comparison with other countries. So yeah, that's a legitimate reason. If you don't like that reason, that's too bad, Ojama. God damn it. None of these are questions, you sons of bitches. Hey, here are some questions. Good, thank you. What is your favorite thing that George Carlin said? I don't know what the favorite thing he said. I could probably say my favorite George Carlin album is A Place for My Stuff. But it's hard for me to pick. He has so much material. It's really hard for me to pick a favorite line. Where is Dear Fat Ass? It'll come. I mean, don't, you know, this shit, it's not like I have some sort of schedule set for this, so don't rely on me as your primary source of, like, advice or something. If it's something like, you know, urgent, you should probably talk to somebody else. Why don't you ever move the fucking camera and show us parts of your house? Because this is a webcam, and it has better resolution than my other camera, while the files are smaller, and it's just better for this, so that's why. My house is not that interesting. The living room has green walls. Some of the other rooms have white walls. Who is John Galt? I don't know. What political party do you associate yourself with the most, and what political party do you think is most right on current issues? I don't really identify myself with either political party. You know, I find myself agreeing with some of the government and foreign policy things that the Republicans say, and I find myself agreeing with the social things that the Democrats say, and, you know, I would not register as either of them. You know, I would vote for certain people from the parties, you know, and who's right on most right on current issues, I think they're pretty much equally failing right now. The Republican Party, though, is kind of irritating me because their only policy right now seems to be against whatever the Democrats do, regardless of what it is. It won't be. It wouldn't surprise me to see them come out and, like, say that they were against the Iraq War the whole time and the Democrats did it or something. I wouldn't be that surprised. Do you think that Iran will get nuclear weapons during Obama's time in office? I have no idea. If they do, what should our response be? Also, what do you think of recent SALT 3 pact between the U.S. and Russia? I don't know much about the new SALT treaty, so I can't really answer that question. I don't know everything. But do I think they'll get nuclear weapons during Obama's time in office? A lot of people certainly say that they think it's possible. So the only information I have is what the experts are saying, and they seem to say that, yeah, it's possible. What should our response be? Well, we have a bonus in this because, you know, for better or for worse, we have Iraq now. I mean, we don't have Iraq, but we have access to it for military installations and shit like that. You know, if Iran were to get nuclear weapons, I'm sure we could install some sort of fucking missile defense or some shit in Iraq, cover that shit. Plus, we have access to Afghanistan too. We have on both sides, you know, something like that. You know, there will probably be sanctions. I don't think we'd pull any kind of military thing, but Israel might, and that's the wild card, because I don't know if, you know, because they wanted to do this shit a couple of years ago. They wanted to do this shit before George Bush left office, and he had the fucking presence of mind to say, no, can't do that. The question will be, if and when Iran gets nuclear weapons, will Israel want to, you know, strike at them? And if we tell them that they shouldn't, are they going to listen? That's the wild card here, and I don't know. I don't know. Is the statement in your description box a parody of the quote from Samuel Jackson in Pulp Fiction correct? Questions. Are you a libertarian? Where do you stand politically? I'm not really a libertarian. You know, I stand somewhere in the middle. I stand undecided. I stand and I have to do a lot of reading about individual shit before I make an opinion on it, because I don't know. What are some objections to welfare statism? Well, the problem I have with welfare in general is that, you know, I think that, first of all, I think that the government, I think it's within the government's power and, you know, within its scope to provide welfare for people. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. the problem I have with welfare is the way that we go about doing it. Because, you know, there's this unfortunate tendency of people who, you know, don't get welfare to think, oh, all the people on welfare are just, you know, slackers and they just don't want to work. And while that's probably true for some of these people, and there's always people who take advantage of anything. But, you know, the thing is most people don't want to be unemployed. Most people don't want to have to feel like they're dependent on somebody else for, you know, their livelihoods. And so instead of just handing these people a check, which doesn't do anything to move them up in society, we need to provide them with access to education, better jobs. Money alone doesn't do anything. And so much of that is just waste. It's just waste. And there's no way, you know, there's no way to regulate what that money is being spent on. You know, I'm for legalizing drugs, but I don't think we should be paying for people's drug habits, if possible. Your thoughts on eugenics as a social philosophy? It is bad. It's very bad. I think we learned that in the 40s. You know, eugenics could be used. You know, the argument could be made. Well, we could wipe out retardation and fucking physical defects and shit like that. But I think it just always seems to lean towards something a little bit more sinister. I subscribed to you a year or so ago. I really like your videos because they remind me of classic The Amazing Atheist. I don't know about that, but okay. I noticed you only have 2,000 or so subscribers, and your videos average 500 to 1,500 views. What is your opinion on why that is? How do you feel about it? That's actually kind of an interesting question. I don't know exactly why the views are so low in comparison to how many subscribers I have. You know, it's not like they're sock accounts. You know, that would be why Sexy Phil might have more subscribers than he does views, or at least before, when he was, you know, subbing to himself with sock accounts. I don't know. A lot of people that subscribe to me probably came from TJ's shit, and, you know, he had a more mainstream audience that weren't always like hardcore watchers, so I'm sure a lot of these people don't check the shit every day or every other day or whatever. You know, I don't know. How do I feel about it? Yeah, I'd like to get the full number of views as my subscribers, but as long as the people that are watching are enjoying it, then that's totally fine with me. But I wouldn't say no to more views, is what I'm going to tell you. Do you think that the quality and appreciation for language as a means of communication and/or an art form will ultimately improve or decline in the future? What effect do you think things such as social networking sites and texting have on language as a whole? Is it a positive or a negative one? Do you feel the language will become homogenized due to mass communication to the point that we'll all eventually speak the same language? Geez, I kind of hope so. That would really make things a little bit simpler, wouldn't it? And please, if you're going to do that, I think we should all speak English so I don't have to learn a new language. Yes, that is my argument. Do I think that the quality and or appreciation for language will ultimately improve or decline in the future? My question would be, how much appreciation is there for language in the first place? Most people don't and never really have read for pleasure. I mean, a lot of people do, but the majority just don't do that shit. So I don't think much is being lost here. It's not like because of texting people no longer read classic novels or whatever. But people won't, the language won't be able to become that dumbed down because the world is run by extremely complicated machines and works in extremely complicated ways, and we all live in an extremely complicated system that requires complicated speech to understand, so I really wouldn't worry about us all speaking in text and texting. Do you feel that people such as Glenn Beck are legitimately dangerous, or should people like that simply be ignored? I think Glenn Beck can be legitimately dangerous. I think the problem with Glenn Beck, and the problem that I have with Fox News, is not even their slant, because Fox News does have an obvious conservative slant, but it only seems like such a huge deal because a lot of the other news sources are so liberal. I really hate to have to say that, but it's true. The thing is that Fox has a tendency to be a little bit more, to have a little bit less finesse in the way that they say things. And they take people like Glenn Beck and they put them on, and when Glenn Beck says something ridiculous, the people at Fox News say, well, he's just, he's just a radio host. He's just a talk show guy, right? And that's fine, but you don't really present him as a talk show guy. Don't they still say fair and balanced before all the shows and shit? I mean, if you want to put that shit on, you should have a separate channel called, like, Fox, Talk or some shit like that. Because people look at Glenn Beck and they think news because he's on Fox News. And that's why somebody like Glenn Beck can be a problem. Because he gets attention from people that if he was just some shock jock radio dude, he never would get that kind of attention. But I still haven't decided what the fuck Glenn Beck's angle is. I look at somebody like Bill O'Reilly. I kind of like Bill O'Reilly. I think Bill O'Reilly is kind of funny, and Bill O'Reilly is also a professional and incredibly smart. He's an asshole, and I don't agree with his politics most of the time, but he's a smart dude. And he's not crazy, and the shit he does is done on purpose. He knows what he's doing. I haven't been able to figure out yet whether fucking Glenn Beck is crazy or not. I haven't figured that out. I got a gun question. You probably already answered it in a video or comment, so sorry for the redundancy. I saw a coffin vid last year with you briefly in it. You flashed a handgun. Was it a 357 Magnum? Yes, it was. Can you show it again in the answers vid? No, I have a video with my guns explaining what they are, if you would like. What other guns do you have? I have 2 other pistols. I don't... You gotta understand, I have guns, but I'm not like a gun guy. I don't know a shit ton about them. I just have some. I didn't purchase any of them. These are all... My stepfather died, and these are not mine. I don't like stockpile ammunition or any kind of shit like that. I just have a couple of pistols, like a lot of people do. What do you think of the Fallout series? I don't really have an answer for that. The only one I played is Fallout 3, and it's all fucked on my computer. So I haven't been able to get very far, so I can't give you a fair representation of that, but it looked cool. What do you think of people who spout the Islam is a peaceful religion and Muslim terrorists are not real Muslims, and specifically, what do you think of white Christians who say this? Well, first of all, anyone who says either of those things is either lying or stupid, or in denial, because you can't get around it. The Quran has some violent shit in it, and it directly tells Muslims to kill certain groups of people, and tells them it's totally okay. And doesn't, it's not like it cancels any of this shit out, or it's a metaphor. Kill means kill. I don't know what it is in the West that we can't understand that. I think we bought into this whole bullshit that we fed ourselves about other cultures, like they're just like so much more mysterious than we are. They're kind of beyond our understanding or whatever. It's kind of an arrogance that the West has about other cultures that leads us to underestimate how dangerous they are. What do I think of white Christians who say this? I guess white doesn't really matter too much in this. But what do I think of Christians who say this? Well, Christians, because they blaspheme on a daily basis and are used to blaspheming on a daily basis, but then enforcing religious law when it's convenient to them, think that Muslims do the same thing. They don't. Muslims are actually devout, and they actually listen to the words of their prophet, and the words of their prophet sometimes are quite violent. it might be better for Christians if they were to pay a little bit more attention to Jesus, but they're content to blaspheme, and then they tell us that we're the ones going to hell because we don't believe. If you had to choose between being stuck in a video game world or your worst nightmares coming to life, which is worse and why? Well, nightmares coming to life, that would be bad. So, because that would fuck everybody. Because I've had some fucked up nightmares, I guess. I guess if I was just stuck in a video game world, that would only affect me. So, I'll try to do the thing that hurts everyone else the least. But I'd have to find... Video game worlds are incredibly dangerous. There's always people shooting stuff, and things are exploding and powering up. It's fucked up. Chris, do you worry about your education? Do you plan on getting a degree? Yes and yes. My question, what is your opinion on the religious takeover of the Boy Scouts of America, and what was it like in the Boy Scouts of America during this? Was it obvious or more of a subconscious thing? I don't know anything about that, because, and I said this before, and I want you to pay very close attention, my atheist liberal friends. Don't be afraid to send your future children to the Boy Scouts, because I was never, and this is true, absolutely 100% true, I was never required to participate in any religious ceremony, okay? I was never required to fucking say any prayer at all. All this shit is completely optional. Completely optional. And like the kind of church service that they do at the end of a camp, some people call it Scouts Own church service. It's not even really a church service. You don't even sing. They sing religious songs, but they sing like God Bless America and stuff, and they talk about being a good youth. They don't even mention Jesus. And when I did my Eagle Scout border review, I see this shit on the news. This will happen every once in a while. Some atheist Eagle Scout, I'm an Eagle Scout, by the way. Some atheist Eagle Scout would be like, I'm returning my badge because, they won't let me be in it because I'm an atheist. What the fuck are you talking about, bro? All I had to say was, I guess it is possible that there is some sort of higher power. That's all I said. And that's 100% true. That's 100% honest. There's some chance, right? Didn't even have to lie. Didn't have to say that I believe in God or Christ or Buddha. None of that. So I don't know who the fuck these atheists are that are turning in their Eagle Scout badges. It seems to me that, pretty fucking stupid. So yeah, I was never forced to participate in any religious activities, man. So, don't be afraid to send your kids there. I mean, what you gotta understand is all the troops are going to be different, right? Some troops, every troop is chartered by some community organization, be it a church or a school or, a civics association. Some of the troops who are sponsored by churches might end up being a little bit more religious, but my troop was sponsored by a civic organization, and we never did any of that shit, man. And we had one of the best rates of producing Eagle Scouts, who raising money, fucking quality troop awards, all that shit. We kick ass. So religion is not a given in the Boy Scouts. I noticed that you featured a Carpathian Forest video on your channel a while back. Do you like any other black metal bands? What do you think of the genre in general? I'm not really huge into black metal. I just like that particular song because I saw it at random. I'm more into fucking death metal and fucking metalcore and fucking deathcore, I guess. And my two favorite bands right now would probably be fucking Black Dahlia Murder and Last House on the Left, which you can see that shit on my channel page. And if you don't like Last House on the Left, then you're a pussy. You should kill yourself. What is the most responsible way to kill babies? With a spoon? I don't know. Responsible, I guess, would be to kill them and then recycle them in some way to feed the other babies. Okay. Are you ever going to do that interview with the different members of religious groups? Yeah, I did some of them. Believe it or not. But all that stuff was on my other hard drive that decided that it didn't like me anymore and just killed everything. Everything. All my videos, all my shit. But I had very little luck getting mainstream religions to talk to me. The only people who would talk to me were Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses, unfortunately. I mean, that's interesting, but it's unfortunate. I couldn't get the fucking Mormons on camera. I got the Jehovah's Witness on camera. I wish I still had that shit because it was so cool. I didn't even have to try. I'd never heard anybody say such ridiculous shit in such a short amount of time in my life. But don't ever give your number to Jehovah's Witnesses. They won't leave you alone. It took me almost a year and a half to get them to stop fucking calling me. What is the exact model of your Smith & Wesson 350? I have no idea. How much was it? Again, I didn't buy this. How much was it? I think I've seen the original receipt. I think my stepdad bought that shit used. Or did he buy it new? I don't remember. He paid like $600 for it, like 1991 or something like that. Do you feel it is possible for young people my age, 17, etc., to form their own opinions on political, world, and social issues? I ask this because I have noticed most people my age usually form their opinions on what they have been told, such as the 9/11 conspiracy movement, instead of what they have observed. Yeah, it's totally possible for young people to form their own opinions, but the thing is that young people are also much easier to pull into shit like conspiracy theories. This is what I talked about when I talked about Nazism. That's a great, they're going after the youth. Youth are much more attracted to fantastical things like conspiracy theories and Nazism and stuff like that. But it's totally possible for you to form your own opinions. Most people do without even noticing it. But everyone reaches a point where they fully mature, and give it some time. But just because you're over 17, just because you're 35 doesn't necessarily mean you have your own political opinion. Some people never do it. Sometimes age isn't anything. I remember you mentioned you enjoy Stephen King writing. What are your favorite books of his? I asked this question like 80,000 times, but the best book that I've read from him is Misery, because Misery is fucking awesome. Movie is great, but the book is better. I love Misery. I like The Stand too, just because it's fucking epic. If you were stranded on an island with a mermaid, would you rather she'd be a top half fish, bottom half human, or the other way around? Well, I mean, like what? If it's a fish top with the human bottom, I can fuck her. But I can't. She won't be able to help me around the island. She won't help me building my coconut phones or whatever. Fucking cutting down coconut trees to make my coconut tree fort and all the other crazy shit that I'm going to do on my island. So it might be better to have it, with the fish legs and the human top, so I can fucking communicate. Plus, still got, you still got shit on the top to work with. There's lots of stuff you can do up there. It's all is not lost. But I'm looking for survival here. And how am I gonna, if I'm making out with a mermaid with a woman top and a fish bottom for like 3 years, and then they find me on the island, people are gonna be like, that's badass. But if they came up to the island and I was fucking a half fish, a fish top person with like human legs, they would fucking think I was a freak, man. Nobody would ever, my family would have disowned me and shit. The mermaid, I could fucking marry that shit. I'd just get a big tank and put it in my house. She could live there. Here's a pretty controversial question. Would you turn a good friend over to the police if you found out he or she had child porn on their computer? Downloaded, of course. And do you think people should get thrown in jail for viewing child porn and nothing else, not producing CP, not raping, not abusing children? When is it basically just masturbatory material? If yes, please explain how jacking off to CP leads to more children getting harmed. It is an extremely controversial question. The fair and, trying to be incredibly fair part of my brain says the reason child porn is illegal is because children have to be hurt in some way or, taken advantage of to make the pornography. That's why that's illegal. It's not illegal because it's gross, and that's the way that I look at it. But if you have child porn on your computer, that's probably a fair sign that you have some problems that you should consider having taken care of. I mean, if you're viewing child porn, you're probably a pedophile. I mean, I don't know. I don't see how any normal person, any non-pedophile, can just end up viewing child porn. If you like small women, they have small women of legal age. Okay, if you like women with tiny tits, trust me, they got women with tiny tits of legal age. You don't have to watch shit that was produced by taking advantage of a child to get your rocks off. Do I think that a person should go to prison just for having child porn? Probably not. But they should certainly be fucking checked out and put on a list somewhere and required to see some sort of something has to be done. And would I turn a good friend over to the police if he found out he or she had child porn on their computer? I don't know. That's a hard question to answer. Maybe not right away. I don't know. That's a hard. But that's my honest question. I don't know if I could, condemn a friend to, that have their life ended. What was the time you most fucked up in your life? What was the time you were the most fucked up in your life, and on what substances were you on? What was it? Was it fun? The most fucked up? Well, the most drunk I was definitely the first time I ever got drunk. I don't really like alcohol, but we were 15 and shit, and we were taking shots of vodka and gin, and after 5 shots, I was I can't feel it. And my buddy's just drink more. And I did. Drank 11 shots of gin, fucking vodka mixed in there, dude. And in 15 minutes, dude, I just puked everywhere. I was fucked up. I think I might have drank more than that. I don't know. I was fucked up for 4 days after that. I might have had alcohol poisoning. Never did that ever again. The most pleasant fucked up I've ever been on, and don't tell the kids, is Xanax and pot is delicious. If you just feeling really, 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 really good, it's pretty badass. And Xanax is so cheap, but it's so good that you don't just be careful. But yeah, Xanax and pot is fucking awesome. I will say that right now. I won't be afraid to say that shit. Would you rather be punched hard in the face several times every day for the rest of your life, or once a month have a deranged lunatic randomly appear during your day-to-day life with a butcher's knife and intend to kill, and why? Holy shit. The butcher. Randomly appear. Well, okay. I don't like that, because I don't like being afraid all the time. Because I wouldn't be able to enjoy life. At least if it was a punch every day, I could schedule that shit, after lunch I get punched in the face. I don't have to wonder. And I think after the first couple weeks I probably get used to it. What do you think is the most pressing issues in the USA today, and if president, how would you address them? Ooh, I don't know if I'm going to have the answer to that question. The most pressing issues in the USA today is crazy Christians. As the president, how would I address that? I don't know what I could possibly do. Because it's not in my power to, alter people's brains. I would probably be... I think people look at the presidency to get stuff done, but I think that people who form political coalitions and work with senators and stuff get shit done more than the presidents do. So I would address them by not being the president. But yes, religion... fucking drug war is a problem. I think those are the two most pressing things. And the drug war is easy. That I could take care of. I would stop the federal government from really stop them from raiding, legal grow operations and stuff in states where medical marijuana is legal and shit like that. What is your opinion on the USA's involvement in the Vietnam War? I think that the reasons behind it were sound, but I think that it should have never happened, because it was clear from the very beginning that the South Vietnamese were not interested, really, in that war. And we should have known from the beginning that if the South Vietnamese weren't going to fight, we could never win. It's a shame this shit had to go down like that, but I don't know. I think the initial reasons for getting involved were sound under policies of controlling the Soviet Union, but I think they should have saw at a certain point that it was never going to work out, and it ended up just being a complete waste of 50,000 American lives with nothing gained whatsoever. Yeah. Movies or books? Are you asking what are my favorite movies or books, or whether I like movies or books? I think books are better than movies for information, but I also like movies. I don't know. I've already answered what my favorite movies are before in another video. What is your most liked and least liked learning subjects? History, math, etc. History is my favorite. I'm really bad at math, but I didn't do much in any of my math classes because I'm awesome. So I didn't really dislike going to math class, I guess. But yeah, math is the one I would least want to do. I like history and English and stuff. I like that. Is Jimmy Carter an underrated, demonized president? I think he is rated exactly where he should be, which is not very high because he didn't do very much. I don't know about demonized. I don't know anything about that. What are some good arguments for nuclear power? It's fucking badass and will last for a very long time and is fucking safe as shit as far as the United States is concerned. It's cheap in the long run. Nuclear power is awesome. Nuclear power is what we should move towards. Wind and solar, of course, that's a no-brainer. But in situations where those things aren't available, nuclear power is can be the backup. Is the Romanian PSL a decent rifle? The PSL is what you might know it as the Dragunov, I believe is how it's pronounced, from fucking Call of Duty. I don't know. I've only ever seen it in the video game. It's a rifle, man. It's a designated marksman rifle. I'm sure it's a fine rifle. Can someone call themselves a Marxist and completely disassociate him or herself with mass-murdering tyrants like Stalin or Mao? Can they completely disassociate themselves? No. But they're going to have to... Anybody who wants to call themselves a Marxist is going to have to explain how they're going to take care of all the problems that their predecessors have had. And so far, the only explanation from the communists and the Marxists is, this time it'll work. Like, why? Because it's like, no. You shouldn't, just because you are a Marxist or somebody is a Marxist or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are the same kind of people as Stalin or Mao. And I think a lot of people would take offense to Stalin being called a Marxist, or even Mao. But no, they're not going to be able to completely disassociate yourself. It would be like, calling yourself a National Socialist and disassociating yourself from Hitler. It's just not possible. Sorry for spelling don't get pissy on camera for that. Well, I wasn't going to until you told me to not get pissy. I'll do whatever the fuck I want, asshole. I'm just joking. What do you think of that case of that church group, the people who believe that God is punishing the U.S. with dead soldiers because of homosexuality, the God hates? Westboro Baptist Church is what he's talking about. That was protesting at a funeral of a deceased U.S. soldier. People are saying that the court should have ruled in favor of the soldier's family when they sued the church. But I sided with the church since they were on public property and not breaking any laws, however insane they are. If I was the judge in this circumstance, I would have... I would have said something along the lines of, the family is wrong for bringing the lawsuit, or the lawsuit is frivolous, but the reason... What's the best way to explain this? They have a legitimate grievance in the general world, but they don't have a legal grievance. And, you know, the court of public opinion, of course, would say that these people deserve some money for being harassed. Because that's the other thing here. When does free speech end and harassment begin? You have every right to protest, but do you have the right to harass people at a funeral? Not really. You don't have the right to stand out in front of somebody's house and throw shit at them and yell at them and call them names. That's not okay. So do they really have the right to do that? I don't know. I would have said, look, they can do this, or, you know, you can't sue them, but I'm not going to give them any money, you know, because these Westboro Baptist church people are fucking asking for it. And frankly, I'm surprised that nobody has shot these people. The Christians will shoot the abortionists, okay, a doctor. They'll shoot a doctor in front of a church, but they won't shoot the people who are protesting the same soldiers that you tell us all to support. Jesus Christ, shoot the right fucking people for once. God damn. I love how the fact you were sitting there sucking on your cigarette and calling other people fucking dumb. Yes, every person who's ever smoked a cigarette is really, really dumb. All the people that have smoked tobacco are dumb. You should go tell all the people that smoke cigarettes that they're dumb. Good call. Good call. Being physically addicted to a substance makes you stupid. I wasn't aware of that. Let me tell you, if you ever get hooked on heroin or something, I'll come by and call you a fucking dipshit while you're in rehab. How about that, motherfucker? You go fuck yourself. What's your favorite System of a Down song? What do you think? Do you think System of a Down will ever get back together? I fucking hope so. If they care about money, they will. That might be enough in and of itself. What's my favorite System of a Down song? Damn. I can't think of the fucking name of it. One of the first 3 songs on Toxicity. Toxicity is my favorite album. I'll say that. I can narrow it down to that. What is your opinion on hate speech legislation that attempts to outlaw speech on the grounds that it is harmful or dangerous, even if it isn't a direct call to violence? That's not okay. That's what I think of that. Also, what is your opinion on sin taxes? I hope you mean by that, I hope I'm understanding that correctly, is taxes on things like liquor and tobacco and stuff. The reasoning behind them is flawed, but they make a lot of money, so fuck it. Do you find the Rasmussen poll to be reliable? Rasmussen poll, I believe, is I thought I read that these are a polling corporation, company, organization that is accused of being right-leaning in its polling. Is that true? Probably. The thing with polls is that I don't put too much... I wouldn't put too much thought into opinion polls, because people will... You know, the questions can be worded strangely. People will lie about what they think if they think that that's the popular opinion. Shit like that. I wouldn't put too much into opinion polls. Are you concerned by the apparent disintegration of U.S.-China relations? If so, does it also alarm you that China and Russia, with whom our relations are also strained, are strengthening ties? Do you feel that the sanctions that we plan to put on Iran, who supplies a large amount of China's oil, will exacerbate the situation? Do you think the U.S. can effectively repel a Russian-Chinese invasion force? Holy shit. What are your expectations for the magnitude of the upcoming depression? Wow, we got into... Alright. Are you concerned by the apparent disintegration of U.S.-China relations? Not really, because China still relies on us to buy its shit. So they're not... They can't afford to not go along with what we want. Because no matter what people in Europe would have you believe, the world still depends entirely on the United States to stay stable. And as long as that's true, China can't afford to alienate us. They need us to buy their crap. So I'm not really too worried about that. Does it alarm me that China and Russia are getting together? Not really, because the Chinese will only help the Russians insofar as they feel that they're the top dog. I think that the communist government in China has always had a problem with Russia, and if they ever get to the point where they think that their cooperation with Russia is going to make Russia more powerful than them again, they'll stop it. That's what I think about that. Do I feel that the sanctions that we plan to put on Iran, who supplies a large amount of China's oil, will exacerbate the situation? I don't think so. I was under the impression that China was in on us with those talks. I don't know. Do you think that the U.S. can effectively repel a joint Russian-Chinese invasion force? First of all, let me just say that this scenario is incredibly unlikely. The answer is, yeah, probably. Yes, probably. Our weapons are better than the Chinese and the Russians. Significantly better than the Chinese and better than the Russians. And significantly, our upkeep is greater. We have constructed more pylons, as you would say, than fucking Russia has, or China. We have some pretty cool shit out there. What are your expectations for the magnitude of the upcoming depression? I don't know. I'm somewhat concerned by it. But living where I do, I've been seeing this shit for years. And what I'm most concerned about and sort of excited about is the point when people in the rest of the country realize that what you see when you look at pictures of Detroit is your future too, if the economy continues to go the way it is. And once people wake up to that, they're going to freak out, but I'm going to find it incredibly entertaining. I'll give you an example of when educating people is a bad thing. Do you think it would be wise to educate terrorists on making nuclear weapons and educating them on how to blow up the entire United States without getting caught? How to blow up the entire United States? Perhaps you would like to educate us on why you wasted time on this video, only because you fucking defy me. LMAO. Well, you're an idiot, because I don't know how they're going to blow up the entire United States. What was some new weapon that they're going to, fucking ultra bomb or some shit? What is this? This is not fucking, command and conquer. Doesn't fucking work that way. And your example is retarded, because nobody needs to educate these people. The information is out there. It's not like the file on how to make a nuclear bomb is locked away somewhere in the Pentagon. Physics are consistent no matter what country you are in. So you can go fuck yourself. Do you think that anti-porn, prostitution, feminism skews psychological relationships with sexuality? Do you think that they have skewed psychological relationships with sexuality? I don't think they've skewed it. I think that women just continue to not understand how men approach sex. That's my final answer. None of these are questions. 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 I hate you all. Okay, we're out of questions. Alright, wait, there's more. There's more. There's inbox. I believe I was sent like a couple questions on the inbox. Alright, what do you respect most about libertarianism or conservatism? What do you respect, liberalism and conservatism? What do you respect least about liberalism and conservatism? What do I respect most about liberalism? A lot of liberals genuinely want to help other people, and I can respect that. What do I respect the most about conservatism? How do I word this? They're more willing to look at the big picture. I think conservatives are more willing to look at the long term, simply because they are conservatives, and they're supporting the old way, and they see events differently than liberals do. What do you respect least about liberalism and conservatism? What do I respect least about liberalism? The limp-wristed way that they go about doing anything publicly, and the sort of evil way that they go about trying to take people out of certain political movements and drag them into theirs. What do I respect least about conservatism? How they're willing to pander to the lowest fucking common denominator, no matter what. No matter what idiot it is, they're willing to support them. That's unfortunate. How would you feel about a European-style healthcare system in the U.S.? I would like some healthcare. I would myself be happy, but I would be concerned about what it's going to do for our money. But at this point, if you haven't come to this realization yet, it's probably time that you pick this up. Our money isn't really worth anything, and its imaginary value is dropping more and more and more as we speak. So at this point, I almost don't even care about how much money is spent because it doesn't even exist. What is your opinion of postmodernism, deconstructionism? I don't know what deconstructionism, but postmodernism, everyone is a fucking ironic asshole. I think that's my answer to that question. What should the West policy be regarding Russia and China? Trying to get China to be a little bit more like us, and trying to keep Russia from getting any more money, because Russia is dangerous. And it's simply because I respect Russians so much that I say that. I don't really wish any ill will on you individually, but your country is incredibly dangerous. What would you like to see Obama do more / less of in combating Islamic fundamentalism? I would like to see him do more honest talk about what Islamic fundamentalism is, and I want him to do less pandering to the non-existent, like, Arab or Muslim lobby. We're pandering to people that don't even exist. Favorite authors or books? I like Stephen King for fiction. I like Timothy Zahn's for some science fiction. I'd be reading the Atheists and shit. I read a bunch of random fucking books and stuff that I can't think of the name of the authors. Who are your top 5 American presidents? Shit. Put me on the spot. I'm gonna put George Washington on there. Why? Because George Washington had the opportunity that he could have taken to maybe become the king of America, and he didn't do that. And that takes an amount of, character that very few fucking people possess. I think that puts him up on the list of some of the top greatest people in the history of mankind, whether he had slaves or not. I like Theodore Roosevelt, because I think that it would be great if Theodore Roosevelt was the president now. I think that he'd be the right dude for the times. I like his approach to foreign policy. I like Abraham Lincoln because he did not let the South get away with that bullshit, and he had enough foresight to see that a divided America would mean only death and destruction for us and constant war. And he knew that he couldn't allow that to happen. That's 3. I like Clinton as a person. I kind of like him as a politician too, because he's sort of in the middle as far as presidents have been. But I just like him as a dude. He's just kind of a cool dude. And people seem to get along with him. He seems to deal well with other politicians and shit. He's a good representative of the country, regardless of who sucked his dick or not. Who else? Let me think here, man. Reagan. No, I'm kidding. Shit. I'm going to say, controversially, Nixon, because he did something that that Kennedy and Johnson didn't have the character to do and got us out of fucking Vietnam. So, bully for Nixon. And I think these are the last... and what's your take on gay marriage? Just curious. Please send back. Thanks. Oh, well, I'm not going to do that. You can go fuck yourself. But, I'm sorry, that was rude. But I'm going to answer the question here. Like I said before about gay marriage, I said this before. I think that gays should be able to have all the same legal rights as everybody else when they get married. I mean, all the same. Adoption, all that shit. See, I don't give a fuck about the word marriage, okay? I don't know why gays care about that. If it's a religious thing, then they need to wake up and realize that the Christian God is not interested in them, and they should get the fuck out while the getting is good. If they don't want to be married in a church, who cares? Fine. If the church don't want to, we can't force the church to sanction anything. I don't even give a shit about that. I don't care what they call it. Call it whatever the fuck you want. All right, I don't care at this point. But yeah, the gays should have the right to all the same legal rights as straight married couples. Okay, that is the end of those questions. I will fucking talk to you folks later.